Hello, good evening, everybody. So my name is Harish and I'm the co-host for today evening for this webinar. I hope I'm audible to each one of you. Okay, so I'll start here today this evening for this DBA program. So the most valuable asset for any age and era is knowledge. And it has become far more in this data and information era with this growing importance and advanced level of knowledge has become a core asset. Now, talking about the business field, companies don't necessarily need journal managers who can see broad trends across several industries. Rather, they need specialists in particular fields who can evaluate data and produce original insights that help companies make better business decisions. Now, hence, the importance of a doctorate in business administration has gained traction, with individuals having a doctorate in business administration valued more highly in today's workplace. Now, this webinar is created to bring greater awareness of the advantages of a doctorate in business administration and help interested individuals have a deeper understanding of his career path. The DBA is a professional degree that, that denotes the highest level of management training. And to help you understand more about the same, I have with me today Dr. Samuel Fasanmi. Now, Dr. Samuel Fasanmi is a chartered member of the British Psychological Society and an international member of American Psychological Society. He holds a doctorate degree in industrial and organization psychology with 12 years of teaching and research experience at various universities. Now, Samuel is a fellow of the Royal Statistical Society and a certified data scientist. He is skilled in teaching statistics, experimental designs, and research methods using modern statistical packages. Now, he is versed in test constructions, psychometrics, and has an excellent writing skills. Now, he has won 11 grants, published over 60 publications, included 2 books in span of 12 years. Now, he is also a well-renowned speaker and newspaper columnist, and in true sense, a master of his craft. So without further ado, let me pass on the mic to him. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful. I appreciate you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure. How's your side? How are you feeling? How has been your day? How's work? How's your family? Hope you are doing great. Thank you for giving me this rare opportunity to relate with global players across the world and to share experience and knowledge with them. I count it as a rare privilege. And I say thank you for hosting us. We appreciate you. Please, the host should make my camera on. The host has turned off my camera. Kindly enable me, please. So today, we are going straight to discuss an important area of research that is a serious, area of serious concern, in both academic and professional research. So we are going to consider an area that, everybody, especially when you are a researcher, that you consider the most important. It is an area that determines whether your grant is going to be granted or not. It is an area where your your research aim and hypothesis will be determined. It is an area where your variable will also be determined, whether it is good or not. So we are going to examine together in the next 1 hour or so, a concept that is called statement of the problem. So I will be sharing my screen right away, and it's going to be an interactive session. And I want you to, ask me questions. I want you to bring your question to the fore so that we can sit together and we can solve some of the problems together. So once again, I'm Samuel, and I'm comfortable when you call me Samuel. So please, can you see my screen from there? Please, can you see my screen from your end there? You can unmute so that you can respond. Hello, please, can you see my screen?
Yes, your
Hello,
screen is
can you see
visible.
my screen?
Yes. Yes, it's visible.
Okay, that's great. So, do I have your permission to move on now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, research statement is an area that drives the research. It is like when you want to go to farm as a farmer, and you must be able to know what you are going to the farm to do, or you want to go to an office as a manager. You must have a reason for going to that office. So there must be a reason why you are going to that office. So deliberately, I've decided to caption this area of research with this, new title by saying that research statement between a mirage and a reality, between a mirage and a reality. Now, we know what a mirage is. When you are driving on the highway on a sunny day and you see some shiny stream of water in front of you that looks like water, as you are moving closer, you discover that that shiny water is disappearing. Then as you are moving closer again, you see it disappearing. But as you are driving, you keep on seeing it. It is not real. It is just a reflection of sunshine, on the surface, on that shiny surface of the road. So most of the time, what we call problem depends on who is saying it's a problem. I want to say a problem is a problem as decided or as defined by the person that is facing that problem. Not only the person, but the circumstances, the situation, the climate, the environment. And that is why to those who are underprivileged, to get a pizza to them is a problem. But to some people who have more than enough, pizza will not be a problem to them. In fact, pizza might be a problem to some people at a time, but at another point in time, it might not be a problem. Just imagine when you were in high school and you felt that having a car is a big problem. But immediately you finish your high school and you started working, having a car will not be a problem again to you. Another problem will be a problem, but that having a car will not be a problem. Imagine a young man who is here to be married. We imagine that one day he will be married, or a young woman who is here to be married. She might be imagining that maybe one day I'll get married. But immediately he or she gets married, marriage will no longer be a problem to that person. That means that a particular problem is as defined by the person that is involved. A particular problem is as defined by the person that is giving its definition. So, which means that when we talk about problem, it might look real to some people, but to other people, it might look like it's even a mirage, not that it might look like. So, a problem is as perceived by the person that is involved at that particular point in time. please note the word at that particular point in time. Because what is a problem to you today might not be a problem tomorrow. What is a problem in the society today might not be a problem any longer. I remember years back, no one could imagine that there will be a time where lectures will be delivered in this manner. It used to be only classroom. So you have to come to the classroom, then the lecturer will wait, the lecturer will sit, you will see the lecturer, you will see the students. But nowadays, we can pass knowledge across to one another without even meeting ourselves till we finish that degree. That is the beauty of technology. That means that what was perceived to be a problem in the years back is no longer a problem now. So that means that problem is also time dependent. It means problem is time dependent. Problem is also situation dependent. A particular situation might present a problem that will look like a problem, but another situation might come that will make the problem looks like it's nothing. For example, in a very, very hot climate, someone that is selling ice block will provide a serious solution when there is heat. But if that weather changes, maybe it's another weather, and that same climate becomes cold, the problem of thirst will no longer be a problem again. So also in our world, especially in the world of academics, what we perceive as a problem at a particular time might not be a problem in later years. As a matter of fact, what we perceive as a problem now might be as a result of the person that is perceiving it as a problem. And that is why a research conducted in a remote village in Africa might yield a significant new findings, but that findings might not be new in a well-developed city of Paris. Perhaps what they consider a solution in that part of the world might be something that, event had already overtaken in the city of Paris, which means that problem is also, situation dependent and environment dependent or climate dependent. And that is why what the bankers perceive as a problem at a particular period in time that is leading them to have a high rate of turnover retention might be a blessing in disguise to those who are in aviation sector or to those who are in telecom sector. So it means that even in economies, what we felt is a problem to a particular sector of the society might be a blessing in disguise to another sector. For example, when there is a high influx of immigrants in a particular country, the rent will be very high. The landlord will smile home, whereas the immigrant will suffer. So what the immigrant perceive as sufferness, as a problem, is a blessing, to the landlords who will be smiling to the banks. So it means that what is a problem at a particular point in time might not be a problem, to another sector of the same society at that same point in time. That means that the problem that we want to consider today is a dynamic situation. It is a dynamic concept. It is a concept that is not static. And that is why before we do anything at all, remember the way I caption it, that it is between a mirage and a reality. So the first thing that we must know today is that whenever there is a research problem or a problem that we want to solve in the society, what is the name of that problem? A problem must have a name. If that problem doesn't have a name, it is not yet a problem. And that is why in the world, even when we had a coronavirus, it was given a name. It was not just called a pandemic or there was an outbreak. No, it transcended beyond that. It has to be given a name. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot quantify it. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot measure it. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot know its dimension. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot know its nature. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot project about it. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot define it operationally. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot study it. If it doesn't have a name, we cannot compare it with other things. So that is why everything that we conceive as a problem, whether in academics or in a society, must have a name. Once it has a name, you have gotten the first weapon to solve that problem. Once you have been able to give that problem a name, you have gotten the first ammunition to tackle it. Once you have given it a name, you have gotten a direction to attack that problem. Once you have given it a name, the problem is almost solved. And that is why even in research, which we are going to narrow down the concept of problem to what we have in academic research, especially for our program in a doctorate of business administration, which is a novel and noble course that we have introduced and that we know that is going to take the world by storm because of its uniqueness. Because we are actually segmenting a unique, people in the society. It's a tailor-made program for a sector of the society who are poised, to solve the problem of economy, who are poised to solve the problem of organization, especially modern day organizations. And that is why this program is not just about teaching. It is about experiential learning. It's about training. It's about having a first-hand, training about the modern things that are happening in the research world and how to adapt it into our organizations. So it is not just about the academic degree where you have and you just have it as a doctor. No, it is more than that. It is an executive program that is principally tailored to suit the modern day, day-to-day business administration. And we know that by the time we are done with this session, especially this semester, you have a better understanding of what the program is all about. So today, let's move on to what we want to consider. These are my expectations at the end of this course today. I'm of the opinion that by the time we are done today, we should be able to understand the meaning of a statement of research, a statement of problem. We should be able to understand what is called will of science. We should be able to identify what we call research gap. We should be able to mill out a research proposal from problems. And we should be able to write, our research proposal. So now, having said that, let's start briefly. And I want you also to make contributions. I have opened the floor by, scrapping the top of it, what problem is all about. So I need your contribution too, to tell me what is your perception of problem? What do you consider a problem, either generally or in academics or in the workplace or among people or in a relationship? What is your understanding of the concept of a problem? So the floor is open. Please make your contributions. You can make your contributions. Okay, let me move on. So now, what is a problem? What is a research problem? So now the research problem in itself, it is very difficult as perceived, it is as defined by an individual, just like I explained from at the beginning. I also said that it can be real, it can also be imagined, or it can be a mirage. I also said that it is dependent on individual, it is dependent on situation, it is dependent on environment, it is, it is dependent on the situation, and more importantly, it always calls for a solution or for several solutions. So what can we now call a problem? A problem can, is referred to some difficulties which a researcher experiences in the context of either a theoretical or practical solution and wants to obtain a solution for the same. Just like I said that, let's consider the context. Before you can call a problem, remember that you must have named it. And that will take us to a particular concept that I need to explain. That is the concept of a variable. In research, every concept that we study is a variable. All the concepts that we study occurs in variable form. And because they are variables, that is the reason why it is very easy for us to actually study them. If problems are constant, there is no point studying it at all because we know its password. All we need to do is just to give it its password and we are in. Just like when you are doing your calculation in mathematics and you want to measure your area of a circle, you know that there is a concept that is called pi. And once you know the value of pi, you don't have any problem again. All you have to do is to calculate your area of a circle because you know the value of a pi is a given value. Or you want to calculate a motion of a particular object. When an object is in a motion, you want to calculate it. You don't have a problem because the value of acceleration due to gravity is usually given as 0.98 or 10 meters per second square. You know it. Once you know it, all you have to do is to substitute other values and you get your answer. So also, when you know the value of pi, which is 22/7 or 3.142, the remainder of the calculation, what is left for the calculation, is easy for you because those values are actually constant. Whenever a value is constant, you don't have any problem dealing with that value any longer. Because once a value is constant, it has a number, it has a numerical value, a numerical attachment, that is attached to it, which makes it easier. But when it comes to what we study in research, in management sciences, what we study, you discover that they are variables, they are not constant. And that is why they are problem. So it means that every problem is a variable. That is the deduction I want to make. That every problem is a variable. Every concept that we study is a variable. So all you need to know is to know how does this particular variable, how does it form? This problem, how does it form? Is the variable occurring as an outcome variable? is the variable occurring as a social variable, is the variable occurring as a extraneous variable, you must know. But you should have it at the back of your mind that that particular variable that you want to measure at that particular time that determines or that attracts that problem that you want to solve is what is called a dependent variable. That particular variable that has the attachment of the problem that you want to solve, that particular variable that has all the traces of the problems that you want to solve, that particular variable that carries the burden that you want to solve, that particular container, I call it a container because it's something that is carrying that problem, that burden that you want to solve at that particular point in time is your dependent variable. That is that particular variable that you want to solve. It is your Y variable that you want to solve. But remember that in the process of finding a solution to that variable, that particular problem cannot exist in isolation. The problem must have some basis, and that is why in solving that problem, there must be another problem that will serve as a yardstick for you to measure whether, to serve as an independent variable to know whether that problem will vary or that problem will make a little difference when you tilt the other one, whether that problem will solve when you manipulate the other problem. So that is the reason, that is how problem is being structured. It means that whenever there is a problem, there is always a solution lurking around the corner for researcher to tap into. I repeat that whenever there is a problem that you want to solve, whenever a problem comes up, a research problem, whenever it comes up, there is always what is called another variable that is lurking around the corner that has the ability, to be manipulated and cause a change that will make that problem to solve. So if that is the case, it means that a problem is actually made for a solution. It means that whenever there is a problem, there is a solution lurking around the corner that we cannot see. There is a solution lurking around the corner that we cannot see. And that is why every problem we believe has an expiry date. A problem we always meet, that a problem is like a padlock. There is a key somewhere that will open that padlock. So a problem cannot exist in isolation without a solution that is lurking around the corner. And that is why we keep on re and search. We keep on re and search. Why are we re and search? We are actually re and search for that solution that will be able to solve our problem. And that is why when it comes to the concept of statement of problem, it is a concept that defines what we want to do. It is a concept, that based on a particular theoretical postulation, it is a particular concept, that bears the burden of the limitations of a particular theoretical postulation that we want to solve. So in that wise, statement of problem is key in research process. I would have loved to say that the hub through which research itself revolves around is the statement of the problem. The statement of the problem is at the heart of the research because without a problem, there is no point researching. If there is no problem, everybody will just stay at home. There is no point searching. But because there will always be a problem, and when there is a problem, there will always be a solution somewhere lurking around the corner, looking for someone who has the inspiration and intuition, who has the vision and enablement, who has the ability and capacity, who has the means, who has the enablement, who has the energy, who has the potential, who has what it takes to tackle it, to solve it, who has what it takes, to tackle it, to challenge it, and to surmount it and to have a breakthrough on it. So that is why this particular concept is key if we want to carry out our research by the time we want to write our thesis. As a matter of fact, this is a concept that determines what you want to write on. This is a concept that determines what you want to do. This is a concept that, ideally when they say, what is your topic? You are likely to be blank. Or even you have an idea of what you want to do. Maybe you have not given it a name. Maybe the name you are given to it is not known to literature. There's another problem entirely. When there is a problem, you have a name for it, but that name is not the name that literature knows, that particular problem with. Then it will be very difficult for you to carry on with that particular project. You will not be able to do it because literature is the source. Literature is the recipe that make your soup to be sweet. Without the recipe, you cannot make that soup. So the recipe that brings that tantalizing aroma to your soup is the literature. Oh, and that is why the literature must have an idea of the name that you want to give to that problem. If the literature doesn't have an idea of the name you want to give to the problem, it will be very, very difficult for you to move ahead. And that is why the concept of naming your problem is one of the most important concepts in the research process. Because it is not just the name you want to give to it. You must know that it is the name that is known, that problem is known for. And if it is not known by that name, you create a name that has a generic name to that particular problem, because it is possible for a problem to be new, like coronavirus was new, but when it was new, the name came, from generic name of previous virus. So which means that the characteristic that those other viruses share, it was assumed that, okay, this particular one too has this characteristic, so let's name it this. Or let's name it after an event that will make us to be able to link it with literature in such a way that it will be easier for us to tackle. So which means that there is a difference between job productivity and job performance, which means there is a difference between sex and gender, which means there is a difference between race and ethnicity. Though they look similar, there is a difference between self-efficacy and self-esteem. There is a difference between self-identity and self-esteem. There is a difference between self-esteem and self-concept, and so on and so forth. So once we know this, it will make it easier for us to situate, our problem and to conceptualize it in such a manner that we'll be able to solve it. So ladies and gentlemen, do you have any question before I move further? And if I'm too fast, please let me know. Do you have any question? So in the absence of question, I will move on. So I want to say that let's look at the next slide so that I'll be speaking to the slide. I asked a question. I said, why is research problem recurring? Why is it recurring? Why is it that once a problem is solved, another problem will reoccur? Or why is it that we cannot tackle a research problem even in a particular field or in a particular narrow space? Why is it that we cannot tackle it once and for all and it will end and there will be no research again? Why is this so? Now, I give an answer in that red letter. I said, the wheel of science must spin. Now, we all know what a wheel is. A wheel, like if you have seen a bicycle before, you see that wheel of bicycle rolling, the wheel of a car rolling, revolving, keep on revolving. So also the wheel that drives research must keep on spinning. Why? Because the world itself is not static. When you look at the rotation of the earth and the revolution of the earth, that is enough evidence that the world we are is not static. It spins every day, every hour, every minute at 4 degrees centigrade. So at longitude and latitude they determine time. So also the world spins, and the time rolls by in such a way that it is not static. As time rolls by, technology keeps on improving. Human knowledge keeps on evolving. Medicine is not static. Human resource management is not static. Business ideas keep on, coming day by every day. And before you know what is happening, the world is not static. The world is moving. And as the world is moving, so also the problems that we can solve are becoming more. So it means that once a problem is solved, with new development, with new invention, with new technology, with new word, with new order, with new knowledge, with new wisdom, with new development, then there will be new problems. Now, I mentioned earlier on about the beauty of virtual teaching. But the virtual teaching also comes with its own problems, with its own challenges, in such a way that you begin to ask that, okay, why is it so? Because there will be, turnover intention. There will be downsizing. In fact, in most of the time now, you hardly see people in their offices. People sit down at the corner of their homes and they do their job. So that does not mean that it doesn't have its own challenges and deficiencies too. They are. But as they are, their research or researches, on each of these concepts, we solve a particular problem and another problem will emerge. We will solve it again, another problem will emerge. We keep on solving these problems till there'll be no word again. So that means that research will keep on recurring. Problems will keep on recurring. And that is why it is not ideal for us to say that we begin to delve into an area that has been, over labored. A lot of people are working in a particular concept, or maybe people are working on job motivation, job motivation, job motivation. That same job motivation can have a new direction. What do you think will motivate people in the new world order? Why do you think that same thing would not motivate people or wouldn't have motivated people, few years ago? Or why do you think what is motivating us now will not motivate us in the next 10 years again? So when you conceive a problem, even the same problem that everybody thought, okay, this problem, is everybody's on it, this and that, you can have a view of that same problem in another way. You can reconceptualize that problem in such a way that it will not allow the problem to reoccur, or it will stem the tide of that problem, or it will stop the problem from escalating, or it will stop the problem from consuming us overnight. So it means that you are thinking ahead, you are thinking smartly, you are thinking in such a way that you are thinking like a researcher, and so on and so forth. So the world itself is revolving. But I'm going to explain something here quickly about what I call wheel of science, as propounded by one man. His name is Walter Wallace. What did Walter Wallace do? As a researcher, Walter Wallace came up with an idea that the wheel of science is not static, that it spins. And because it spins, it has 4 junctions. Just 4 junctions. What are the 4 junctions? The first junction is called the junction of theory. It's a theory. The second junction is called the junction of hypothesis or research question. Then the third junction is the junction of data collection. Then the fourth junction is the junction of conclusion and limitation, result, conclusion, and limitation. Then there is this arrow that spins across, in a cyclical form in such a way that it moves from one junction to another and passes the baton, to another junction in an unending cycle, that we keep on spinning like a wheel of a bicycle. Now, when you look at it, let's pick a phone as an example, technology. Years back, we had phones that could not even browse, that could only receive text messages and make calls, and could not browse at all. Now, when that happened, some people came up with an idea. Can we test an hypothesis? Can we raise question? Why is it that this phone cannot browse? Why is it that we can only call and we can only send text messages, but we cannot browse the internet on the phone? That is a research question. That is a research hypothesis. And what did they do? They went ahead, generated hypotheses, conducted qualitative research, came up and gathered enough data, data that will be sufficient to turn around the fortune of the world, data that were valid, data that were well coordinated. These data were analyzed and they came up with a result. And what was the result? The result showed that, the result revealed that, yes, it is doable, that we can actually have a phone that could browse. And eventually, we had a phone, and that is why everybody had a phone that could browse. And what happened from there? We discovered another deficiency. We said, okay, this phone can browse, yes, but this phone doesn't have what is called a WhatsApp. This phone is not very beautiful, it's too big. Then some architects, they swung into action, okay, let's redesign a phone that is not too big, that will be smart and small and freaky and neat and beautiful. Then a theoretical postulation came up. With the theoretical postulation, then they move on again, they generated hypotheses, they raised research questions. And in the process, they went back to the field again. When they got to the field, they gathered data again, qualitative data, quantitative data, use semantic analysis, use discourse analysis, use quantitative analysis, came up with another result. Don't worry, the result again had another limitation. With this limitation, what can we do to this phone again? They found another thing that, okay, this phone, why can't we make this phone in such a way that we can even call, one another on phone and see our faces? And everybody was happy. How could that be possible? It became a theory. It became a theoretical postulation again. And everybody was saying, how come again? This is another theory. Would this be possible? Okay, if this will be possible, let's test it again. Then they raised research question, generated another research hypothesis. Then they went into the field, of course, saw people's opinion, used several data, clouding, and some other forms of modern data, gathering. And eventually they came up with another idea, a new result, a new finding. But remember, that new finding too had another limitation. And that phone again, and said, okay, this phone, yes, we could see each other, but the brightness of the picture is so dull. The picture is not so clear. What kind of picture is this? I can hardly see you. I can hardly hear you. Then another theory came up again. Oh, another postulation. Why is it that I cannot see this person very well? Why is it that the pictures are blurred? Why is it that the sounds are cracking? And immediately they went into action again, generated another hypothesis. raise another research questions, plenty research questions, plenty hypotheses, went back to the field again, collected data from different people across the globe, across different professionals, and eventually they came up with another idea. And that idea, you know, again, with new results, new phone, new technology, new picture, better picture clarity, better camera pixel, better sound, and everything. But eventually, what happened again? There is a deficiency. So now the wheel will continue like that. And that is why there is nothing, no matter how new, no matter how novel, no matter how sophisticated, that thing, after a while, we will discover deficiency. We will discover its deficiencies. We will discover its limitation. We will discover its inadequacies. And we will want to move on again. So the cycle will continue unending. And that is why, in as much as the cycle continues unending, so also your knowledge of this course will be relevant always, will always be relevant. Because the knowledge you are going to gather from this training, from this course, will last you in a manner that you'll be able to tackle such problems. It will help you to conceptualize problems. It will help you to tackle the problems. It will help you, it will give you a kind of a strong footing, you know, to excel in all areas, of your profession. And that is why this particular course is very, very important and very, very useful beyond, being academic. Now, having said that, I have a component of research problems. Most of these I've mentioned them during the course of my talking, but I will still mention them anyway. That's okay. Component of research problem. What are the components that a research problem has? What are the components? The first thing that should cross our mind is that there must be a platform through which the problem happens. A problem cannot be floating. A problem does not occur in isolation. A problem must have a host. It's either the problem is hosted by an individual, hosted by an organization, or by a group of people, or a family, or a domain, or an industry, or a nation. Anywhere, it must have an address. A problem must have a host. There must be a host. Then there must be some objectives or objective to be attained at. You don't just go to tackle a problem for nothing. It doesn't make any sense. You don't go into war for nothing. You don't venture, you don't do adventure for nothing. At least, if you do adventure, the least that can happen is that you do it for the fun of it. So also when you are carrying out a research is a serious business. It is not just for, the fun of it alone, but to achieve, a noble aim, to solve a particular problem in the society, to solve a particular problem at a particular place or in an organization or in the life of an individual or in the life of an organization, and so on and so forth. So there must be, a sound objective for, venturing into a research. Then there must, there must also be some doubt in the mind of a researcher with regard to the selection of alternatives. So this means that the research must answer the question concerning the relative efficiency of the possible alternatives. You should know that it is not just a one-way solution, that, okay, there must be a relative alternative. There is always another way of doing it. And that is why when you want to conduct a research, you want to answer a particular research problem, you should know that you have several variables, and that is why we have more than what is called independent variable. You have several extraneous variables. What are the extraneous variables? An extraneous variable is a variable that a researcher does not need at that particular point in time, but that could influence the outcome of your research. So it means that for every problem around, you have several extraneous variables locking around it. Despite the fact that the only one that can solve that problem at that particular time, the one you are looking at, is the independent variable that you want to pair with it. But do not worry, you have several other extraneous variables that are waiting in the wing, either to moderate or to mediate or to control. So they are there, we cannot see them visibly, but they exist. It shows that there must be plausible alternative explanation to every problem. So it means that the problem is not just to be solved by only one solution. We have several other ways, possible alternatives, several alternatives that you can utilize in order to solve that problem. So it means that a problem is not just a solution specific. So you can have several other solutions lurking around the corner that you cannot see, but they exist. They exist. So there must remain some doubt in the mind of a researcher with regard to the selection of alternatives. You must have, just like I explained. So I'm going to shed more light on this, especially concerning the variables, because you are going to, when you want to carry out your research, you want to find out, you want to know, you want to conceive a problem. Yes, let's say there's a problem in an organization. Let me create a scenario. In a particular organization, there is a leadership crisis in such a way that the manager and the middle level manager, they are not, they are always at loggerheads. Once the manager, makes a suggestion on a particular solution to a task, the line manager will have another solution contrary to the solution of that manager. And in the process, it's getting escalated in such a manner that, people are beginning to, other workers are beginning to have concerns about what is happening in that organization. And in effect, it has split the organization staff, into the pro manager and the pro line manager. So, and in the process, what suffers? Job productivity suffers. Look at the way I created it. Now, at the end of the day, when job productivity suffers, profit maximization will reduce. If profit maximization reduces, it means that they are close to exit door. The organization stands a chance of being closed down, or most of the staff might leave for another organization that's turnover. So if that is the case, in that scenario that I just painted, look at the way I started with the leadership crisis. What was obvious was the leadership crisis. But how it will affect the organization? The leadership crisis in itself is a crisis between just two people. But it will eventually dovetail into the performance of the organization, into the profit maximization, into the profit ratio of the organization. And once that happens, the essence of going to work is to make profit. The essence of working, basically, is profit maximization. So if that is the case, that means that it has affected the root of the organization. Now, in that scenario, if I ask you, what is the problem? You are likely to tell me that the problem is the managers that are the loggerhead with one another, because that is what we can see at the surface. But the problem actually is about the organization that is about to go into extinction. So now, if that is the case, when you look at that picture that I just painted, leadership style or the leadership crisis or the conflict in that organization is not the problem that you want to solve. It is just what you want to manipulate. Once you manipulate it, the problem, the real problem, is like an iceberg. You can only see the tip of it. The real problem is, beneath the sea, is the problem of the profit of the organization. Because once the profit suffers, then the fight will not even worth it for them too. So that means that there is what is called an outcome variable in the process of, conceptualizing your problem. When you want to get your research topic, go for the jugular. Go for the variable that is dependent in nature. A dependent variable is the variable that you want to measure. It is the variable that problem is attached with. In the scenario that I painted, the problem is attached. The problem of the two managers fighting is attached to the problem of profit maximization now in the organization, because their fight has caused wahala, has caused a kind of bra in the organization. So which means that what you can do in order to alleviate that problem is to look for solution that will be able to help, the profit maximization of the organization. So that means that if an independent variable is the variable that you have to target, but just like I explained that a variable cannot exist in isolation. You cannot go into a research with one variable. The least number of variables that you can have, the least two. You can have the least two, but you can't have just one variable. So it implies that when you are carrying out a research, you must have minimum of two variables. So, but the one that, that problem is weaved around is the dependent variable. And that is why when you mention statement of problem, the statement of the problem is like the hub through which every other things about that research revolve around. And that is why it is expedient for us to conceptualize it in such a way and name the variable, the underlying variable that is actually deeply embedded in that problem as our dependent variable, as the variable that we want to study, as a variable that we want to use for our experiment, as a variable that we want to study for our thesis, and look for plausible other the alternative variable that could trigger a change in it. That alternative variable that could trigger a change in it is your independent variable. That variable could also be your moderating variable. That variable could also be your moderating variable. But do not forget that you always have a pool of the extraneous variables that are lurking around that variable, trying to see that, they influence or they affect the outcome of your study. So we must know all this. And once we know this, it makes the work easier for us. And once the work is easier for us, then we can move on. So now, please, do you have any question? Do you have any question? Question, contribution? So in the absence of a question, I think we can move on. Then the next slide. The next slide is clear. It's about how do you select your research problem? How do you select it? Just like I explained that, when you have when you conceive the idea, when you conceive the research idea, please go for gold and not wood. Do not go for the wood, go for the gold. If you go for the wood, when there is fire, it consumes the wood, turns it into ashes, and no one remembers it any longer. But if you are going for the gold, once the fire comes, the fire beautifies it, makes it to shine more and preserve its alluring beauty. So that is the difference between what you go for in a research. You go for research, you go for a particular problem that you want to solve. The problem that you solve that the world will not know about it. The problem that you solve that will not worth the effort at all. The problem that you will solve that you ask yourself after a few years that what have I done? That does it really worth all my effort? Does it really worth all the stress? So if that is the case, when you are conceiving the idea of your research or research problem that you want to tackle, kindly go for the gold. Kindly go for a legacy. Kindly go for a particular problem that you will solve that the world will know about it. Kindly go for a problem that you will solve that will give you a satisfaction, joy, that will fit in, into your personality. Do not go for something that you don't like. Go for something that you like, that you cherish. Go for an area that you know that you can fit in. Go for an area that you know that you have the capacity. Go for an area of your interest. If you have, an area that interests you, everyone has what he or she likes. And the beauty of management science is that there is virtually issues of management science around every problem in our society. Go to aviation sector, you see the issue of management science there. Go to the banking sector, you are going to see problems that management sciences can capture. Go to agricultural sector, you are going to see people managing, directing, leading, administering, and doing other things that are within the purview of the management field. Go to the health sector, you are going to see people managing, you are going to see people administering, you are going to see people directing, you are going to see people leading, you are going to see people managing resources and controlling resources. So, which means that management science is a beautiful bride that no other field can do without. In as much as you have people to manage, in as much as you have resources to manage, in as much as you have legacies to keep, in as much as you want to aspire and lead people, or you want to emerge as leader, or you want to pass on the baton of leadership to another set of people, there will be need for management research. In as much as they are training or people need to be retrained or people need to know new things, they need to learn new things, they need to unlearn some things, there will always be the need for management research. So in that case, it means that management is like a beautiful bride that every other field must love. They just have to love us whether they like it or not, because our research keeps them going. So, which means that this particular program, the doctorate program in business administration, is not limited to the people that are in the business management alone. It is a field, it is an hybrid of all the fields of human endeavor. It is a certificate that galvanizes everyone, irrespective of their field, irrespective of their learning, irrespective of their background, irrespective of what they do, irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of their field, irrespective of their financial, of their professional background. So it means that it is a uniting, degree that everyone, every CEO, every aspiring managers, must crave to have, you know, So, and that is where the world is going, because the world is about managing. The world, is saturated with production and needs manager. So they need managers who are equipped with modern day, modern day knowledge, modern day applications, modern day theories and equipment, modern day teaching, modern day orientation, and most importantly, modern day smartness. So if that is the case, then this particular program is a program for all. And that is why we need to encourage even our colleagues, to think and to look in this direction. So I said you should go for the gold and not for the wood. Now, I will also say that we should also consider this, the second point there, which is don't be narrow-minded. Do not be narrow-minded. You are in the midst of the ocean of the world, the global ocean. You have the net that can capture a whale. Do not limit your net to just crab. Do not limit your net to just baby fish. Let's project your net in such a way that it can capture a whale. Don't be narrow-minded. Let the scope of your research, let the scope be reasonable, be reasonable enough, to accommodate varieties, to accommodate, spices, to accommodate creativity. Do not box yourself to tight corner. I've seen some of my students, especially my master students, what they do by the time, most of them are always enthusiastic about having new topics. And by the time they have the new topics, we can do minimal supervision, especially when we want them to be free, we can only guide them. So, like someone who wants to carry out a research, who has gotten a very brilliant research, statement, that, okay, this is the problem that I want to tackle. This problem, I want to tackle it. But how do you want to measure the variable? Yes, you have given the problem a name. So we now know that this problem has a name. You have conceptualized it. You have a theory that actually explains it. You even have some of the previous literature, that could not answer, the gap that you want to meet. So you have a gap, a methodical gap that you want to meet. Good and fine. But do you have, what you have the instrument to measure this particular variable? If you don't have the instrument to measure it, you cannot quantify it. What you cannot measure, it will be very difficult for you to weave that variable into an hypothesis. And once you cannot factor it into an hypothesis, you cannot test it. And whatsoever you cannot test, you cannot go ahead. So get a scale to measure it. And there's a problem. So which means that from the beginning, when you conceive that idea, when you have that problem that you want to solve, you must have it at the back of your mind that it is more than just solving a problem, that you must know how do you want to solve the problem? What are the instruments that you want to use to solve this problem? How do you want to measure it? What is the form of this particular variable? Is this variable amoebic in nature that keeps on changing? Or is this variable, do you know the nature of the variable? Do you actually understand the variable? Do you know anything about the variable? Do you know the dynamism of the variable? Do you have an idea of what the variable is all about? If you don't, then you need to know before you can go further. So don't be narrow-minded. Then I also say that you should also say clean and simple. Say clean and simple. And in as much as possible, ensure simplicity. Don't be too cumbersome with your variables. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. In research, it is always better for you to be able to handle, whatsoever you want to bite. Don't bite more than what you can chew. You know, ensure operational definition. Define your variable in such a way that you will know that, okay, these are the variables that I want to work with. Some variables can be multifaceted. For example, you are working on personality. If you're working on personality, it is always better for you to let us know what do you want to do with the personality. Are you working on personality traits? Are you working on personality dimensions? If you're working on personality dimensions, which of the dimensions? So you need to narrow it down to something that will be manageable, that will not be cumbersome. Simplicity is the hallmark of a good research. It is not until you pile up several variables into your research problem that we know that the problem is big. No, remember, when we want to measure brilliance, it does not depend on the size of the head. You must have seen heads that are very big, like bowl of cassava, and yet the content inside are like seed of mustard. Whereas you must have seen heads that are small like tangerine and oranges, but the content you have there might be as powerful, as watermelon. So that means that it is not how big or how it is not the number of the variables that really determine, the uh, whether your project work is good or not, or whether your research topic is good or not. No, it is the novel. It is how novel it is. It is the problem that you want to solve. Which problem do you want to solve? How do you conceptualize it? Can you identify the problem? Is it very clear? Do you have an idea of how the problem is? Previous idea, interaction, and all those. So you must have all those ideas. So it is not that you just pile up variables upon. I've seen students that will just pile up like 6 variables. It doesn't matter. If what you want to work with, if the variables are many, good and fine, and you can manage them. But I want to say that work with as little variables as possible. It makes your work simple. It makes your work good. It makes your work neat and straightforward. Then you also ask yourself, in selecting that problem you want to solve, does it really worth your effort? If you are going to run a program for like 2 years, you are going to run it for like 2, you are going to carry out research work for that long, then it must be something that worth your effort, that worth your sacrifice, that worth your energy, that worth your money. So if that is the case, like I said earlier on, let your interest matter. Your interest should count. Your interest should be what should matter to you, in selecting, and that is why in selecting your topic, it is your topic, it is not my topic. So select it and let me know what you are selecting. Come and tell me, let's share notes. So once we share notes, then we can say, oh, this is what you want to do. So I will be so glad to be part of what you want to do, to guide you. That is how it works. Now, I now ask again, do you have the capacity to solve the problem? Before you select that problem, you must ask yourself whether you have the capacity. If you don't have the capacity to solve the problem, then I don't think it will worth your effort to delve into it. Because if you delve into it and you don't have the capacity, you can get to the middle of the road and you go back, you turn back. If what you want to do will attract international grant, go for it, good and fine. But if it will not, then know your budget before you venture into it. Research is expensive. Now, it is not even only in terms of financial strength alone. What about in terms of expert strength? You must know that, okay, what you want to venture into it, you have resources, academic resources, or academic acumen, or the inner strength, to go for it. Or then you ask yourself, will there be data for this particular variable? If you are working on a particular concept, especially very new or novel concept, and we don't have data, then you have not started at all. You must be sure that, okay, this particular thing, I will get a data. If I'm going to get a data through qualitative research, maybe I will get it, or is it through quantitative, or is it through triangulation? Or am I going to combine? So you must know what you want to do. So once you know what you want to do, it gives us a kind of clear picture on how we can situate the problem you want to tackle in the society, and we can guide you right. Then that is it. So if you have any question again, please let me know. If I'm too fast, let me know. Then if you have any contribution to make, the floor is yours. So let's relate, let's interact. And in the absence of none, then we can move on to the next slide. Then I ask that, do you understand the problem that you want to do? Do you understand the problem? This is is very common. We have seen people that will start a particular, they say they have started a project, they have gotten conceptualized the problem, they have identified the problem, they have, started the work, they have the variables. But along the line, defining the problem becomes cumbersome for them, because problems at times can reach the middle and change. Problem, they are like amoeba, they change. They are not static at times. So from the beginning, you must have an understanding, a grasp of what that problem looks like. What can the problem do? What does it capable of doing? You must have this idea, or else you may run into trouble. So you must have the idea. Then I use an example. Remember iceberg. Iceberg, when you see the problem on the sea, you think that what you have seen is just a small thing. But beneath the sea is a big problem, or a bigger problem. So you must be able to have a clue of how your problem looks like. It helps you in no little measure, to tackle the problem and to be able to do what you are supposed to do. Then I say, remember amoeba. I've just mentioned that, it keeps on changing. Then I ask, what are the techniques in defining your problem? What are the techniques in defining your problem? There are several techniques through which you can define a problem. But here, I deliberately, I thought we are going to discuss this together so that we have an understanding of how this thing runs. When it comes to defining your problem, when a student comes with a kind of research topic, the first thing I ask is, okay, go and write a statement, just a statement, maybe like a page or like a 200 words, detailing the problem in clear terms, what you want to do. Now let me state this. There is a difference between background to your study and your statement of problem. They are not the same thing. The background to your study, from its name, is also background to the study. That is, that particular problem you want to conceptualize How does it evolve? How did it come? How did it come about? For example, when I wanted to do my PhD in Nigeria, there is a bank called FCMB. This bank, you know, completely took over another bank, a bigger bank for that matter, Finbank. My wife was a banker. My wife worked with Finbank, the bank that was to extinct. Then I became worried. So because at home I noticed her behavior, I noticed that she lost interest in going to work. Very unusual of her. She would still go, but she would go reluctantly. She was, as a banker, there is a kind of organizational citizenship behavior that is expected of a particular profession. Then I found out that, when I want to tease her and I say, my beautiful banker wife, it wasn't anything to her any longer. Then I knew there was a problem. Whenever we go out to buy things from the store, when a banker buys, it is quite different from when a teacher buys. a teacher is likely to price down, to ask for discount, to ask questions, before you spend that money. A banker is likely to say, okay, bring it to my office, because they don't normally have the time. They buy online, they do their things online. But I noticed that those things were no longer, anything to her any longer. Then I was worried. That was when I was thinking of a research problem to tackle. Then two ideas came to me. A concept of organizational citizenship behavior. Yes, it's an outcome variable, because when you have the civic virtue, you want to be associated, you want to be proud of your work, and wherever you go to, you want to show them that, okay, I am this, I'm working with this. You carry the emblem of that organization around wherever you go to. And when that is lost, something great is lost in you and the organization. Number two, when the downsizing eventually came, when the process started, the yardstick that organization used was not fair, because performance was not the key index, for laying off. What the organization did was that for every film bank that you have that was located on the same street with the FCMB, all the staff of that film bank will have to go. So that was the I asked myself question, where is procedural justice in all this? This procedure is not fair for those who had committed their life and resources to this. Then the work committed brought about a job commitment. That, okay, job commitment is a serious variable in this equation. Then I discovered that my wife was always thinking or talking about, eventually, by the time they do this, their layoff, how will they train? Have they trained them? No, they have not given them a kind of post retrenchment training. There was nothing like that. Then I was thinking of, okay, what cushion could these workers, what cushion could they get? Then I was bothered. So I thought about another variable again. That variable was psychological empowerment. That, okay, it is not even just about empowering them monetarily, because most of them, they had money, at least relatively, but the psychological of it that they are living, so psychological, they needed to be empowered psychologically. So I came up with several variables. Now, Virtually all of them, because I relate with them when I go to bank to, visit my wife or to, or to go and pick her up, at the closing hours or something, every one of them, they were talking about leaving for another job. They were talking about they're tired of the job. They're talking about so their commitment drastically reduced. And because all of them were thinking of, okay, you're looking for another alternative before, the big hammer, will come. So now I consider the main variable, which was turnover intention. And that was that, okay, I want to leave this organization because there is I must get an alternative. So in the process, I came up with about 5 variables, 2 outcome variables, which center around the problem, then 3 other variables, which could trigger those 2 outcomes. Then I came up with my topic. Look at that. So now, which means that I had a commitment. There, you can have different types of commitment, but the one that I was interested in at that particular time was job commitment. I had the organizational justice, but the one that was suitable for that particular incident was the, procedural justice. Then I came up with the psychological empowerment. That was another independent variable. Then, but the 2 variables are really, that has something to do with those workers and their organization majorly, which served as my dependent variables. They were the organizational citizenship behavior and the turnover intention. Look at the way I came up. So the background of that study had to do with my one-on-one encounter experience with my darling wife. So it had to do with it. So which means that when you are talking about the background of your variable, that does not address the problem. There's a wide difference between that background and the problem. They are not the same thing. But when you want to tackle a problem, you want to solve a problem, like in this scenario that I just painted, the problem, the major problem was their psychological well-being. Because some of them, if sacked, imagine a worker that is so committed to that organization, that was meeting a target with the bank, that was very loyal to the bank, doing everything, put all her life commitment to that bank, he or she can run into depression. He or she can commit suicide. He or she can die. He or she can develop high blood pressure. So the psychological well-being of those staff was an issue. It mattered to me. What about on the part of the organization? On the part of the organization, eventually the organization is not that the organization is going into extinction. They are only merging with another bank, which means that they still have a life of their own. So if eventually they lose their best hands, what happens to them? And that is the concept of turnover intention. That is what it brings about. That is the problem I wanted to. So I wanted to tackle that problem. Then I asked myself, as other researchers work in this area, plenty of people had work in this area. But what is my own difference? What is the gap that I want to fill? Plenty gap, methodical gap. I wanted to use path analysis to ensure that would going beyond relationship to causality, to see what each of the variables will actually, how they are related, and the part that they could generate among themselves, and what are the percentage contribution of one over the other one, beyond mere relationship. I wanted to know beyond mere relationship. So I wanted to fill a methodical gap, and I also wanted to, you can see the way I situate the problem. You can see the way I situate, the background to the study. So they are not the same. And I know that as we move on, as we roll by, you understand this more. I believe with this basic knowledge that I've passed across, you must have learned 1 or 2 things. And I know it is possible for you to have some questions. So if you have any question, you can let me know. But in the absence of question, you can also let me know so that we know whether to end the class or not. Thank you. So, question, please. Any question?
Samuel, please check the chat section. There's a question over there.
Any question? Any question, please?
Samuel, please check the chat section. There's a question over there.
Okay. I just checked. Okay. Great. Is DBA good for its people? Yes. Just like I said, in the new world order, DBA is the in thing now. DBA is not just an academic degree. It is meant for high flyers. It is meant for people, people who are mobile, highly mobile people. It's a very good degree. It is a very, very recommended degree. It's a very good degree for everyone. And like I said earlier on, because management science is a beautiful bride to all the field of human endeavor. Because wherever you have people that are relating, definitely there will be issue of management there. Whenever you have organization, that are planning to grow, that are planning to move on, that are planning to, to extend or to enlarge or to recruit, then the issue of management will set in, and you need knowledge. In order to do this, you need to know how to carry out research. You need to know how to make your organization visible, in the global market and all those. So this particular program is very, very good. It is a very good program. So I can assure you it's a good program. Yeah. Please, you have any other question? And I would also like to say that it is not limited to people in a management, just like I said. It's all encompassing. We welcome people from engineering, we welcome professionals, from medicine, we welcome professionals from architecture, welcome professionals from different field of human endeavor. In as much as you have the capacity, especially the intellectual capacity to meet up with, our curriculum. And luckily for us, our curriculum, is very simple, is tailored towards meeting your need, and and it's very flexible. And our our lecturers are always available. You can relay with them, you can chat them up, you can send your questions to them, and they are always available to attend to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel, for this lovely insight on the program.
You're welcome.
And in case you people have any questions, you can always reach us out at info@cadrera.com. So thank you all for your time. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.